Sometime around 2016, a Danish word arrived in the English-speaking world wearing a very specific outfit. Candles, a wool blanket, a mug of something hot held in two hands. A book with a pale cover telling you this was the secret to Danish happiness. The word was Hygge. Within a year, it was on the short list for Word of the Year at both Collins and Oxford. One book about it, Mike Viking's Little Book of Hygge, sold over 1 million copies, and a whole aisle of things you could buy appeared underneath it. Scented candles, faux fur throws, anything soft, all labeled Hygge. Here's the problem with all of that. The candles are real, but they're the packaging. They're what got exported. And if you actually want the thing that helps people get through a winter where the sun is gone for months, the candle is close to the least important part of it. So let me do the unpackaging. Where the word comes from, what it actually names, the genuinely uncomfortable thing underneath it that the gift books leave out, and at the end, the honest answer to which part of this you can actually use and which part you'd have to move country to get. Start with the word itself, because the word gives the whole game away. Hygge shows up in written Danish at the end of the 1700s, back when Denmark and Norway were a single country. It comes from a Norwegian word, hygge, which means to comfort or to console. It's the same root that gives English the word hug. And if you follow it further back to the Old Norse hugur, you land on a word that means mind or soul. Sit with that for a second, because it's the opposite of a shopping list. At its root, hygge is not a thing you place on a table, it's a state you're trying to get a person into. To comfort, to console, to settle someone's mind. You cannot buy that in a 3-pack, which is already a problem for an entire retail category built on the claim that you can. So if the word is about a state of mind and not a set of objects, 2 questions follow. How did it end up meaning candles, and what was it actually describing before it did? Take the candles first, because that story is short and it's mostly not Danish. The global version of Hygge, the one with its own bookshelf, is largely a British publishing event from 2016. That was the year it hit the Word of the Year lists, the year the little book sold its million, the year a dozen near-identical titles landed within months of each other. A Danish concept, yes, but the packaging, the aesthetic, the idea that it's a decor style you assemble, that was manufactured downstream for export in English. And the people closest to the word noticed the reduction immediately. One Danish writer put it flatly. Hygge had been shrunk to the image of cake and candles. The inside had been thrown away and the wrapping paper sold as the gift. I'm not sneering at the candles. Low light in a dark country is genuinely nice, and I made a whole other video about it. The point is narrower and it matters. What crossed the border was the surface. The mechanism stayed home. So let's go get the mechanism. Here is what the word is actually pointing at, underneath the wax. Think about what a Nordic winter does to a social life. The sun is functionally gone for months. It's cold, it's dark by mid-afternoon, and every instinct you have says stay home. Left alone, that's a recipe for 5 months of not seeing anyone. The thing a culture needs badly is a way to keep people gathering anyway, and to make that gathering so low effort that nobody has an excuse to skip it. That's what Hygge is. It's not the candle, it's the set of unwritten rules around the evening the candle is lit for. The rules go roughly like this. Keep the group small, keep it informal, no one is performing, no one is being impressive. Leave status at the door. The point is precisely that nobody stands out. No heavy debate, no conflict, no one selling anything, often no phones. The whole design lowers the cost of showing up until showing up is easy. Picture the practice rather than the product. A few people around a low table on a Wednesday, not a Saturday, because a Saturday is an event, and the whole point is that this isn't one. Something simple to eat that somebody made without trying to impress, maybe finished together in the kitchen. Nobody dressed up. The conversation stays in the shallow, warm end on purpose, how was your week, not what do you believe about the world. No one is waiting for a turn to say something clever. If it sounds slightly boring, that's not a flaw in the description. The mild boredom is the feature. It's what makes it repeatable, and repeatable is the entire trick. And that's why it's fair to call it a system rather than a mood. A mood happens to you. A system is repeatable. You can do it every week, it works whether or not you feel like it, and it produces the same thing each time. People together with the stakes turned all the way down. In a place where winter is actively trying to isolate you, a repeatable, low-effort way to stay in each other's company is not a decoration, it's survival equipment. Which sounds lovely. So now I have to tell you the part the gift books leave out. The same rule that makes Hygge warm on the inside is the rule that makes it cold on the outside. And a Danish anthropologist has spent a career saying so out loud. His name is Jeppe Trolle Linnet, and in a paper with the excellent title, Money Can't Buy Me Hygge, he argues that Hygge is not the innocent social leveler it's sold as. He calls it, his words, a vehicle of social control. Here's what he means. The rule is, everyone blends, no one stands out, we're all comfortable together. That feels egalitarian, and inside the group it is. But flip it over. A rule that says no one stands out is also a rule that quietly polices anyone who does. Linnet found the concept comes bundled with a negative stereotyping of the people seen as unable to do Hygge properly. Too loud, too intense, too foreign, too much. The coziness and the exclusion are not two separate things. They're the same rule, read from inside versus outside. And that rule has a name in the region, which is worth knowing because it explains where the force comes from. In 1933, a Danish-Norwegian writer, Aksel Sandemos, published a novel set in a small town he called Janteloven, and he wrote out its unspoken code as 10 rules. They all say one thing in different words. You are not to think you are anything special. You're not to think you're smarter than us or better than us or that you can teach us anything. Sandemos meant it as criticism. He was describing the suffocation of a small town where everyone watches everyone. But the phrase escaped the book. Janteloven, the law of Jante, is now the standard name Scandinavians themselves use for a very real social gravity. Don't rise above the group. Put Janteloven next to Hygge and the machine is visible. Hygge is the warm face of the same rule that Jante states coldly. One says, stay level with us, and it will feel like belonging. The other says, stay level with us or else. It is genuinely both, depending on whether the group has decided you're one of them. This is the part I think is genuinely worth your attention, more than any tip. The thing that makes a Hygge evening feel so safe, everyone the same, nothing sharp, no friction, is exactly the thing that can make a culture hard to enter if you arrive as the person who's different. You don't get the warmth without the wall. Any honest account of Hygge has to hold both, and the version with the pale cover holds neither. So, a word that originally meant to comfort the mind turned into a candle you can buy. Underneath the candle, a repeatable social ritual for keeping people together through a dark winter. Small, informal, no one performing. And underneath that, the same rule doing quieter work. Everyone blends, and whoever can't is gently kept out. That's the whole object. Not cozy, not sinister. Both, because it's one mechanism. So what can you actually take from this? The ritual transfers, and it's the real prize, not the candle. A standing, low-stakes, small gathering that happens whether or not the week was good. No performing, no phones, no agenda, nobody being impressive. If you build one of those and keep it through the worst months of the year, you have imported the actual mechanism. You can light a candle at it or not. The wax was never the active ingredient. The etymology transfers as a corrective. Anytime a foreign word for a feeling shows up with its own product line, you can safely assume the surface got exported and the mechanism stayed home. Go find the mechanism. It's usually a behavior, not a purchase. Two things do not transfer, and I'd rather say them than sell you a fantasy. The exclusion doesn't have to come with you, but you have to actually decide that because it's baked into the original. A gathering built on "no one stands out" will, left unattended, start punishing the person who does. If you build the ritual, you have to consciously leave that rule behind, or you've imported the wall along with the warmth, and the floor underneath it doesn't transfer at all. Danish winter contentment isn't sitting on candles. It's sitting on a 37-hour week, 5 weeks of holiday, and a welfare state that removes the background dread of what happens if you get sick or lose your job. Hygge is the feeling you get to have once that fear is handled. Copy the evening if you like. I think you should. Just know you're copying the top layer of something that has a very expensive foundation, and that no amount of candles builds the foundation.